Hey guys, today we are going to learn about factoring with trig functions. But before we do that, let's pause and do some review on factoring and factoring rules. So here are 4 simple problems that you learned in previous years. So hit pause and try to factor each of these 4 expressions. All right, so to check, x squared minus 9, that is difference of squares. So this comes from x squared minus 3 squared. So that is going to factor into x plus 3, x minus 3. If you wrote x minus 3 times x plus 3, order does not matter. That is completely fine. That works out when you have 2 terms and they are both squares, and it's the difference you're subtracting. You can use this factoring rule there. Number 2, that's a trinomial, 3 terms. So you look at what 2 numbers multiply to get your constant term, and their difference, or their sum, is negative 5. So the factors of 14 are 1 and 14, or 2 and 7. And since it's negative 14, it would be negative 1 and positive 14, positive 1 and negative 14, or negative 7, positive 2, or negative 2, positive 7. So the pair that works is x minus 7 and x plus 2. Just do the inner outer term. So this is negative 7x and this is positive 2x, and their sum is negative 5. Likewise, number 3 is also a trinomial, but 12 is positive. So your 2 numbers that multiply to get 12 have to be the same sign, and they're going to take on the sign of the middle term. So they're both going to be subtraction, because negative times negative is positive, but they add to be a negative. So what 2 numbers multiply to get 12, but their sum is negative 8, and that is negative 2 and negative 6. Once again, if you put it in the different order, negative 6 and negative 2, that's perfectly fine. All right, and the last one, 2 numbers that multiply get negative 10, and their difference is positive 3, or their sum is positive 3. So this one's going to be x plus 5 and x minus 2. When your last term is negative, you are finding 2 numbers with opposite signs. So one positive, one negative. The bigger of the 2, the one that's further away, bigger absolute value, the one that's further away from 0, meaning negative 7, technically is smaller than positive 2, but negative 7 is farther away from 0 on the number line than positive 2 is. So that's the one that takes on the sign of your B term, your middle term. So since 3 is positive here, 5 gets the positive. All right, why did I bring this up? Here is why. We are going to be factoring things like this. If you look at cosine squared x minus 1, you might be thinking of the Pythagorean identity, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. But here, the question asks you to factor. So, in order to do this, some people can see it and they can just factor it right away. Other people need a little assist, and there is what's called the substitution rule. You are allowed to temporarily substitute an entire expression for a variable for an entire expression, just to make what you're looking at easier to see that you can factor it and then replace it back. So in math, that is called U substitution. If my pen wants to write today, that would be great. Let's just type it then, I guess. All right, so looking here, cosine squared x. I am going to let, and you write the words let, u equal, and I'm going to let u equal just cosine x. I am making this problem in red temporarily easier just for a little bit. So if cosine equals u, then cosine squared is u squared. So u squared minus 1. I just replace what cosine is equal to in terms of u's. If I plug cosine back in, I would get cosine squared minus 1. That's what the original one is. Now looking here, this looks like problem number 1 in the do now. X squared minus 9 was difference of squares. U squared minus 1 is a difference of squares. So that is U plus 1, U minus 1. Do not stop there and just circle and say, woo, I'm finished, I factored it. The person's going to say, where the heck did U come from? You need to go back and make sure you rewrite what U was. So plug back in cosine X wherever you see the letter U in your factored form here. Plus 1, minus 1. So cosine squared X minus 1 factors into cosine X plus 1 and cosine X minus 1. When we start getting good at this, you can skip the step of substituting for U, but we should get used to seeing U substitution because it's going to come up later in calc and in later classes as well. All right, let's look at this one. This is sine squared X minus 4 sine X minus 12. Look and see what is being repeated. So I see a bunch of sine X. I'm not going to let U equal sine squared. I'm going to let U equal just sine X. So let U equal sine X. Now, wherever I see sine X, I'm going to plug in U. But I got to remember the squared. So I have U squared minus 4U minus 12. Forget about sine for right now and just factor. So two numbers that multiply to get negative 12. So they have different signs and their sum is negative 4. So 6 and 2. Since 4 is negative, it takes on the bigger one. So the 6 needs the negative sign. Now that that's factored, replace your u's with sine X. So sine X minus 6 and sine X plus 2. Take a minute and look at that. See how we did that there. All right, last one. Secant squared X minus tan X minus 3. Well, we're running into a problem. I don't see anything repeating. But I do see something being squared here, so I need to use an identity. So let's look. I want to be able to factor this, so I want to have all the same trig functions in the problem. So secant squared X, there is a Pythagorean identity that is 1 plus tangent squared X equals secant squared X. So I'm going to replace that with 1 plus tangent squared X. Now I have a problem that just has an expression that just have tangent. Combine like terms, so I need to combine the 1 and the negative 3. So we have tan squared X minus tan X, and then I have 1 minus 3, so minus 2. Now I see that I need to use U substitution with tangent. So let U equal tan X. So I have U squared minus U minus 2. Take a minute and see if you can solve that expression. If you said U minus 2 and U plus 1, you are correct. And then the final step is to plug in tangent. So we get tan X minus 2 and tan X plus 1. Final answer. All right, that is it. We are going to practice this more in class tomorrow. Well, please let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks, guys.